Welcome to Making It, a podcast where dreamers are catching their dreams. This is your host, James Demarco. Sit back and get inspired to make it happen. Welcome to Making It, Dreamers Catching Their Dreams. I'm your host, James Demarco. I am thrilled to have my special guest, Shane Bruce. He is a licensed therapist for over 20 years. He has experience in all sectors, and he has many invaluable tips for keeping yourself on track, free from distraction, and in achieving your goals. So welcome, Shane.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, James. Thank you.
Great to have you here. So you've been on the circuit for a very long time. You also have an amazing book called Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, a heartfelt approach. Am I right?
Heartful, like a full heart.
Heartful approach. And
Yeah.
a lot
Could
of
be
the
heartfelt as well, of course. Yes.
It could be heartfelt and heartful. For some reason, I want to keep saying heartfelt. But you have a lot of tips in there for people who are struggling to stay on track. So we are going to discuss how anybody can use those same techniques in identifying what distracts them in achieving their goals. So I wanted to start off for a second and let's talk a little bit about your clients. And because you've been a therapist for so many years, you've seen it all and heard it all. What would you say are some of the main key factors that people have in trying to achieve their goals, whether it's a relationship, a new job, a passion project, a totally different career? Is there a commonality that you've found over the years?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. We were talking a little bit about this before we started, having to do with what Bruce Sanguine calls core unconscious beliefs, or cubs. And
Yes.
I was making the example. Let's say you wanted to get from Philadelphia to New York, and you keep winding up in Morristown, and you don't really know why. It's because deep down inside, you don't believe that you can get to New York. And so that's your core unconscious beliefs. And I think at some point, if one wants to get to New York, and I was using the example of being, I want to be a Broadway star, right? And I have this message during my formative years that tells me that I can't be, and
Yes.
I have internalized that message in an unconscious way. And that keeps driving me. So the work is really the discrepancy between, well, first we have to, I guess, admit or get in touch with or identify what the core unconscious belief is. That's the first step.
Yeah.
Then the next step would be, how do we change that? And we were talking a little bit about hypnotherapy. Hypnotherapy is an excellent tool for helping people to change core beliefs. I mean, for example, I know hypnotherapy is used often when people want to quit smoking. It's very hard when you're a long-term smoker. I was, who conceives of themselves like my identity was like, I'm a smoker, right? So the idea of being a non-smoker, what would that look like? What would that feel like? What would that be like? Is something that I think something like hypnotherapy can help with, so that I can, if we're going to liken being a non-smoker to getting to New York City. And I did. I mean, I quit smoking over 20 years ago. I actually enjoyed running more, running on the beach more than I enjoyed smoking. But that's another part of it too. There has to be a motivation. We have to know our whys, and really
Of course, the why is the biggest.
know our whys. Why do I get out of bed in the morning? Or this concept, arete, a life's purpose, right? Greek for a sense of purpose, or a sense of what gives us meaning, or what the Japanese call the ikigai. What is it that motivates us to be happy? So I think we have to figure out a way of identifying who we are. And I identified the self as a 5-pronged star. So I like to think of ourselves as stars. We're all stars, right?
We
And
are
we
stars.
actually do have a lot.
We're made of stardust. Yeah.
What's that? Yeah, we're made of
You got
stardust.
some stars
Exactly.
on
Thank you, Carl
it.
Sagan. Right. So,
Yeah.
interests, abilities, talents, skills, and values. That's how I identify the self. And the system that I developed is sort of it's a variation on the mind map, if you will. And I cheekily call it the self center, because in our society we're not supposed to be self centered. Although we do live now in this culture
And
of narcissism, right?
and And you
Yeah.
talk about that in the mind map video, which I have posted on the video link
Great.
in the comment section, and also the podcast. If you go on Making It Podcast and listen to this, you'll be able to see the link to the mind map. And so let's get right into the self-centered.
Sure.
You say it's okay to be self-centered because you need to take care of yourself, and and that has to do with what's important for you to survive, right?
Yeah, not only okay, but necessary. And I do use the example of the parent putting the oxygen mask on themselves first, so that they can be cognizant to put the oxygen mask on their children. And I think this is a good analogy. You have to develop a healthy self-interest. And I'm not talking when I say being selfish, I'm not talking about being an infantile brat. Um,
Right.
I'm really talking about a healthy self interest, like a mature
Sure.
self interest, and understanding of if you don't find a way of being connected to your interests, talents, abilities, skills, and values, and you are convinced that you have to live your life for other people. That programming could come from your family, from society, what have you, or society might have a different idea of who they think you should be, and that differs than what your calling is or what you're feeling drawn to within you. That's really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about what is it, what are your passions, what makes you excited to get out of bed in the morning. And I mean, it could be anything from quilting to jazz dance. I mean, it doesn't
Yes.
really matter. What you want to do is make a space for
And I
who
don't
you
think
really
that
are.
many people I don't think many people make that space and wake up every day identifying with who they are. And that's an important part of the podcast as well,
Yeah.
because the work that you described, even with this mind map of values, and we'll go through them,
Mhm.
uh, it's important deep work to do to achieve your goals. And I talked about this in my former podcast that I did years ago with my life coach to get a sense of who I was, what was important to me, and what were my values. And many people do think you're selfish if you have boundaries for different things in your life, but it's really you taking care of yourself.
Yeah, there are cultural norms that are sort of baked in codependency, if you will. And I think when we are on a path of self-discovery and self-actualization, we buck up against those conventions and can be
Right.
accused by family members, or maybe friends with whom we had these kind of unconscious, dare I say, toxic emotional and behavioral patterns. We buck up against that, and we are accused of being selfish. We're shamed for pursuing what's really important to us. And I mean, it doesn't matter what your beliefs are, whether you're religious or not. You can say, God wants me to be happy. You can say that my happiness depends on source energy. It doesn't really matter. What does matter is that you're connecting to some sense of hmm, fate, of destiny, of what it is that you're here to do. Like, why were you born, man? What
Right. Right.
if you take these interests, talents, abilities, skills, and values, this culmination, cultivate and culminate this, it will inform what your life's purpose is. And guess what? Your life's purpose will make you happy. And I came up with
Right.
this idea I call experiential affluence. Experiential
Okay.
affluence is like, okay, so you could be 99 years old and be a billionaire. And unfortunately, at this point in time, when this show is done, we have not mastered biological immortality yet. So you can't buy your time back. So whatever it is that you do, I mean, that would lead you to believe that time is the commodity, right? Not money per
Yes.
se, but time.
Everybody's focused on time.
Yeah,
Yes.
but time
Time's
is
running
really
out.
time is an illusion. There's no such thing
Yeah.
as time. There's only now.
Thanks for joining me on this episode of Making It. I'm your host, James Demarco. Keep dreaming, and I'll see you next time.